All right. I think we'll go ahead and start. Just a few minutes behind. Let me introduce myself for those of you who I haven't met. I recognize a lot of you, but not all of you. My name is Lance Askelson. I'm the director of the Center for the Study of Languages and Cultures. I'm also an applied linguist, and I'm the originator of this program, which started last year. Some of you probably attended the SLA grant information session that I gave earlier, I think in January it was. And I talked a little bit about sort of the origin of this program, its purpose. Let me just sort of recap very briefly what this program is all about. About 2 years ago, the College of Arts and Letters got a new dean, John T. McGreevy, if you're not familiar. And John recognized the importance of foreign language competency in general, but particularly pushing foreign language competency to advanced levels. And he thought this was particularly important for undergraduate students. He saw it as a mechanism or a vehicle by which to sort of increase the intensity and the sophistication of the undergraduate experience. And so he went about cobbling together some funding parties, some very generous alumni for the most part, who shared that view. And he worked with me to develop a coherent program. And he didn't just want to throw money at the problem. He didn't simply want to say, well, all right, let's send a bunch of kids abroad. But we took some time and very carefully looked at the literature, looked at the literature in second language acquisition, looked at the research literature in study abroad immersion, and the pattern and theme that emerged was quite consistent. And as evidenced by the way that our program has been designed. Study abroad immersion is most effective when students at low to mid intermediate levels of proficiency go abroad and are sort of placed in a very structured program of study that includes both sort of formal language study and opportunities to interact with people in the locale, in the community. And more than that, study abroad is particularly successful if there's preparation before and there's sort of debriefing after. That is, if you try to activate some very conscious strategies for maximizing language acquisition during the study abroad experience, and also if you try to get students to think very carefully about how they can maintain those language skills and the proficiency that they've achieved upon their return. So that, in a very brief nutshell, is sort of what led to not just the grant, but this set of coursework. And last year was the inaugural year of the program, and it was much more ad hoc, and it was a set of workshops rather than a formal course. We decided to codify it a little bit more, formalize it a little bit more. And I see that as a good thing for you and for the program. What we're going to do here tonight is a number of things. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the course entails. I'm going to answer questions that you may have about your grants. I'll give some time both for general questions and then individual questions if you'd like to approach me during the break or after the grant. I apologize for the date of today's first class. This was scheduled by the registrar's office back in fall semester. I certainly didn't realize when they told me when this class was going to happen that it was the day before Easter break. So I realize that is slightly inconvenient for many of you, majorly inconvenient for others. And so I appreciate you being here and taking time to take this seriously. What I'm going to pass around now is the syllabus for the course. And as one would expect from a 4-week course, it's rather slim. But it is something to be taken seriously. And in giving you this syllabus, I want to emphasize that this is not a series of informational sessions. This is a course of academic purview with the intention to have you think critically and intellectually about what you're about to do. Yes, part of the language acquisition or the language learning enterprise is skill-based. But another part of it is very intellectual. It's transformational, in fact, in terms of how you view yourself in relation to the culture that you're about to be immersed in. It's transformational in terms of all of the context and awareness that you bring to bear on this study abroad experience. And so I hope that in the context of these short 4 weeks and these short 4 class meetings, that we have a chance to sort of embellish your understanding of how you can maximize this experience. Now, I understand that some of you may sort of view this as a requirement to get out of the way, and there's not a whole lot I can do to change your mind. I hope I'll be able to change your mind. But I would suggest to you that this is actually an opportunity to do exactly what it is you proposed in your SLA grant, and that is to make sure that you advance to the greatest degree possible in your language proficiency. And that's what this course is designed to do, and I hope very much that we'll be able to accomplish that for all of you. Using this as a guide then, I'd just like to very briefly go through the syllabus and the major points. I'm not going to go through this in fine-tooth. You've got the course description, you can read that on your own. You've got the learning outcomes. I would just skim those 3 major points. That is a nice overview of what it is we're trying to do here. The pedagogical approach is worth noting. I'm not going to sit up here for 3 hours over the next 4 weeks and lecture at you. That would be incredibly exhausting and boring for me, and it would be, you would be as well served by reading the text all on your own. Rather, I'm going to ask you to listen to me a little bit. I am going to lecture a little bit, but I also am going to be asking you to think critically about the ideas that we're presenting and to evaluate those ideas based on your experiences, your language learning, and try to really integrate them into your knowledge. And I sort of go through that in detail in that short paragraph if you'd like to read it. What I'd like to really turn your attention to are the course expectations. There are required readings, and they're detailed on the bottom in the course schedule. Essentially, we're going to read this book. Will there be a test? No. Will I ask you to sort of give some evidence of having at least opened the textbook? Yes. And I hope you'll do more than that. I hope you will read as much as you find to be useful. And I would suggest that, for the most part, the textbook itself is sort of the result of a long, longitudinal research project at the University of Minnesota's Center for Advanced Research on Language Acquisition. And it's been field tested a number of times. It's been developed over a period of almost a decade and refined in the course of that. And while I don't like everything about it, I think overall it's a very nice monograph dedicated to exactly what you're preparing to do, and that is study abroad immersion with a focus on language acquisition, and necessarily so, by implication, a focus on understanding the local culture and understanding those cultural patterns that you will then need to incorporate into your language proficiency. All right, so readings. There's also another component I'd like to point out, and that's the course blog. I'll ask you to post before each class meeting over the next 3 weeks, so a total of 3 sort of separate postings. I'll ask you to post a response to my prompt. And the first prompt is very simple. The following 2, once you have a firmer basis from which to provide some answers, will be a little more in depth. But for this first week before our next meeting, which would be next Thursday, I'd like you to look at the week's readings that will be required before you come to class, which is essentially the entire second section of the page at alt text. And I'd like you to sort of consider and evaluate the strategies that they propose for maximizing language acquisition. Talk about which strategy struck you as particularly effective, worthwhile, noteworthy, and why that is. Again, this is all in pursuit of having you think critically about these language. You can get a textbook over there on the other side. Thinking very critically about this, these ideas of maximizing language acquisition during the study abroad period, and I think you'll find it helpful. In addition to responding to my comment, I'd like you to respond to one of your classmates' comments. All right? So that's really the only homework there is in this course. We're going to sort of carry some of the dialogue outside of the class, respond to my posting, and then you'll respond to somebody else's posting. If you haven't used a blog before, we're using an open blog. Anyone can post a comment. Since I just created it, hopefully all of the spammers won't find it right away. And what you do is you click leave a comment. It asks for your name. Just put your first name. It asks for your email address. That's private. It's just for me to know if I need to follow up with somebody who's made a comment, and then put your comment there.